Okay, so now I am going to do a recap of what we discussed at the June 25th meeting in regards to the Hill Bog project on Valley Street. This is a project that's been ongoing since 2010. The Board of Selectmen approved it back then, and it is a rehabilitation of Cranberry Bog's project as the initial 2 phases of work. Last night's meeting was meant to be a periodic update to the Board of Selectmen from the property owner and her lawyer and the contractor who's doing the excavating work on the property. However, the night before our meeting, there was a related meeting at the planning board because there's a second potential option for work to be done on that site, which would include the installation of solar panels and create a solar farm. That particular planning board meeting was a separate project from what the Board of Selectmen oversees and what we were meant to discuss last night. However, I believe that most residents thought that the update that we were going to get at the Board of Selectmen last night was going to include updates about the potential for the solar farm. Unfortunately, that was not the case because the solar project is completely separate from the project that the Board of Selectmen approved in 2010 and which we are still getting updates for. The reason why the meeting ended up going so long is because of the confusion essentially over what we were going to be discussing last night. And I certainly didn't know whether the update we were going to get last night was going to have a component describing the potential solar farm issue, or if it was just going to be an update on the standard work that the Board of Selectmen had approved in 2010. It turns out that the intent of the owner and the lawyer was just the latter. They were simply going to be providing an update on the excavating work. But I think it's important that the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board work together in order to get a better overview of the complete scope of work that's being proposed for that specific area in town. It is about, I think it's 149-acre privately owned lot, and it is agricultural land. So based on the bylaws of the town, the excavation work that they are doing is still consistent with what was approved in 2010. The solar panel portion is a completely separate permitting process that would have to go through the planning board, not the Board of Selectmen. But in order to make sure that the entire project is being done in a way that's respectful to the neighbors and is being done in a way that is consistent with what the town wants to see happen, while keeping in mind that this is privately owned property and that we can't, as long as what the owner is doing is within the bylaws of the town, we can't stop a private landowner from doing stuff on their own land. But so last night's meeting was actually a little bit confusing when it came to this particular project. I think a lot of the residents from Valley Street were hoping to get more information about what the overall scope is of the project that's going on over there. And the Board of Selectmen, we were not certain whether the information that we would be given last night would include that update. Becky Coletta, who is the chair of the planning board, was good enough to come to last night's meeting in order to ensure that the solar project was brought before the Board of Selectmen as a potential secondary secondary project that could be taking place on that land. But the planning board at their Monday night meeting decided not to make any determination on the permit that had been requested for the solar farm until more information is given to the planning board. It's important that both boards have a full overarching view of what the entire project is meant to be before anything else goes forward. So in the end, what happened is the property owner and her lawyer and Skip Landers, who's doing the excavating work on the property, basically were there just to give an update on the excavating work. The solar project was mentioned and then discussed at length, but we don't have any final information about that. And what we decided was that the planning board and the Board of Selectmen need to go forward working much more closely in collaboration to determine what the entire scope of that project is. So I'm going to be sure to talk to Becky Coletta today, and in the coming weeks. The next planning board meeting that will address this is on August 12th. So I will plan to be at that meeting, and I think that in the meantime, in the ensuing next few weeks, we will be working with the planning board and doing the research to determine what pieces of this project are really overseen by what boards, and how the two boards can work together to ensure that the project is holistically going to be addressed by the town. So that was about an hour and a half worth of discussion at last night's meeting. In the end, though, one of the things that did come out from the town manager's report was the news that now with the DPW under the town manager, the DPW is going to be moving forward on some paving projects, and that Valley Street from the Hill Bog entrance down through the Forest Street intersection and all the way down to Plain Street will get milled, completely milled, so that all the old asphalt is going to be removed and then repaved as one of the first two streets that are going to be addressed by the DPW. The other street is High Street, which actually I think is going to take place before Valley Street, but it's going to be High Street and then Valley Street are going to be the next two roads that are redone by the DPW. So that was the Hill Bog project update. And if anybody has any questions, please let me know. Have a good day.